Hi guys, so today we're talking about situations where the probability isn't really easy to determine. Like if I flip a coin, it's really easy to figure out that there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to land on heads or tails. But let's think about like a soccer match. What's the probability of one certain team winning? We can't really say that it's 50% because, normal logic would say that there's two outcomes, a win or a loss. But we can't say that it's necessarily 50% because what if they're a really bad team? Then that probability would go down. Or what if they're playing against a really bad team, which would mean that that probability would go up. So what we look at is what we call experimental probability. So experimental probability is based on previous results. The idea is that we look at any previous thing where this has occurred and we call it a trial. All right. So let's say that in previous games, the soccer team, out of their last 10 games, they've won 3 of them. All right. So in that case, our probability would be figured out using this experimental probability formula, number of successful trials divided by total number of trials. So in this case, it would be 3 out of 10. Okay. Let's look at a proper example. So T's going in a horse riding competition and she's worried about falling off her horse. So she has fallen off her horse twice in the last 15 competitions that she's been in. What's the probability of falling off the horse this time? So for this, we use experimental probability is the number of successful trials over our total number of trials. So the thing to notice here is that success doesn't necessarily mean success or winning. It generally means what we're looking for, okay? So in this case, we're looking for times she's fallen off, which is 2. Even though that would be considered not successful in this, it's still counted as successful for the probability. So her probability is 2 out of 15. One other thing that we can do is we could actually figure it out over lots of different events. So what about if another question said in her next 45 competitions, how many times would she expect to fall off? So what we can actually do here is using this probability and multiplying it by the number of competitions she's going to do, we can actually figure out the estimated number of times that she'll fall off, all right? So our estimated number of times that she'll fall off is the experimental probability multiplied by the new number of trials. Okay, so our estimate is experimental probability multiplied by a new number of trials. So we're going to do 2 over 15 multiplied by 45 trials, which is going to tell us that she will expect to fall off about 6 times. All right, so quote comes from Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz. She's a famous scientist. She said, "I got into science because I was always the smallest kid in school. I thought if I became a scientist, I could invent a formula that would make me taller."